Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free, 877-566-1020, or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. The Rays just know how to win. It is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there, here on this Friday night at 10:44. The William Haynes Show, as always, live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. This is a Rays post-game edition of the William Haynes Show. The Rays, of course, with a 6-4 win over the Miami Marlins to advance to 2-0 on the season. It was certainly an exhilarating game. Ryan Yarbrough was absolutely stellar, getting through 5 2/3. There was the couple of solo home runs there in the 6th and the 7th innings from Meadows and Margot, respectively. And you think maybe Game 2 goes similar the way of opening day. Instead, the bullpen stumbles a little bit. The Rays find themselves down a couple of runs in the 9th inning and down to their final 2 outs. It was Brandon Lau and Yandy Diaz hitting back-to-back singles. And wouldn't you know, Joey Wendell, Joey Forearms, depositing a baseball into the right field seats for a 3-run home run, giving them a 1-run lead. And then it was Francisco Mejia in his Rays debut hitting a sac fly to make the lead 2 runs. And it was Diego Castillo pitching in a back-to-back tonight, which would probably take him out of the running to close tomorrow's game. But he does get the save. A relatively easy inning, 1 hit allowed, but only 14 pitches. So far in 2 save opportunities, Diego Castillo is 2 for 2, and he's looked rather automatic. It seems at this point that he is, at least out of the gate, has that highest leverage spot, more of a closer role, if you will. Has locked down the 9th inning the past 2 days, but a couple of relievers making their debuts for the season. Rowe, Sheriff, Kittredge, all struggling a little bit and all giving up at least a run. And then Pete Fairbanks as well got into a little bit of a tricky situation for the 2nd straight day. So we'll discuss all of that. Of course, if you're listening and you'd like to share your thoughts, the number to call is 877-566-1020. And with that, to give maybe some time for some calls to roll in and all those things, we'll take a couple-minute break, and we'll be right back. Again, the number to call, 877-566-1020. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. I'd like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 636. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 10:48, we are back on the William Haynes Show, this Rays post-game edition of the William Haynes Show. A couple of tweets from Mark Tompkin after the final out, because, of course, he's got access to all the Zoom rooms and things like that. Kevin Cash calling Joey Wendell the Big Bopper and said Wendell considers himself Bash Brothers with Austin Meadows. And then also on a more serious note, Cash says he went with Sheriff in that spot, which would have been the 7th inning there over Cody Reed or anyone else, because he felt he was the right matchup with the lefty Corey Dickerson to get the ball on the ground, which he did, although it was a hit, so that was the logic behind that move. Ryan Sheriff in 9 2/3 innings pitched last year did not give up a single run in those 10 opportunities, and then, of course, his first time out during the 2021 season, and he is dinged up for a run. He is that ground ball pitcher, and again, did get the ground ball. It just was in the right place, I believe, zipped right down the left field line, and Corey Dickerson found himself standing at second base there, and that knocked in a run. A couple of runs, actually, in the 7th inning to get that rally started for the Miami Marlins. But with that being said, again, if we got anyone listening, you want to call in, talk Rays, one more time, the number to call is 877-566-1020. We'll be going probably about another 40 or 50 minutes or so, breaking down tonight's Rays win, and then at the very end of the program, we'll preview tomorrow's game. It is 6:10. It will be Rich Hill going up against Elazier Hernandez, and then also Chris Archer basically in a tandem start with Rich Hill, so we'll discuss that there at the end. But really, without further ado, for the Rays, it was 6 runs on 8 hits, 1 error. The error was on Brandon Lau. And then for the Marlins, it was 4 runs on 10 hits, no errors for them. So the Marlins did out-hit the Rays, and for a while there, I believe they had doubled the Rays in hits because, again, as we said, the bullpen did not have a stellar outing. We talked about this going into the season. What would the dynamic of the bullpen look like without those automatic 3 outs basically in Nick Anderson, everyone being basically sliding down a spot, or up a spot rather, as far as the kind of high leverage situations they would be pitching. And now all of a sudden, until Anderson comes back, we're going to be seeing guys like Kittredge and Sheriff, and then maybe even Jeffrey Springs, who was warming up but has yet to make his Rays debut here this season. Guys like that typically are just your regular middle relievers, but now because of circumstance may have to be thrust into those basically late inning, as I said, high leverage situations. So over the course of the first 2 games, we're already seeing that come into play, which is no surprise. We know that the Rays are pretty much always in close games. And it happens to be more times than not they come out on the winning end, which we always love to see. They were the number one team in Major League Baseball, I believe, in both 1-run and 2-run games, and it really seems like every single game happens to be one of those, and they did have the second best record in Major League Baseball a year ago. But either way, I guess now we'll just kind of get right into it. What I tend to do is we'll go over the box score first and then the scorebook and those kind of things, unless we get any phone calls. So for basically the offense and the fielding, so the lineup that Cashy went with today, Kevin Cash. So in the outfield from left to right, we'll start there. In left field, it was Austin Meadows. In center field, Kiermaier got a day off. It was Manuel Margot out there. Rosarena again there in right. Then in the infield from third to first, it was Yandy Diaz at third base, Joey Wendell, Spelling Adames over there at shortstop, Brandon Lau at second base. It was Yoshi Tsutsugo once again leading off at first. Catching was Francisco Mejia, who made his Rays debut, and I thought on both ends of the baseball had quite a stellar debut, really. At this point, he did have a pass ball, but he had another moment, I believe, in the next inning, a catch that probably saved a run with someone standing over there at third base. So certainly difference maker. He had a walk, a single, and then a sacrifice fly in the ninth inning to give the Rays a little bit of cushion. So a guy that certainly was going to be in, I think, competition with Mike Zunino for that starting catcher spot. I imagine they're still going to split time over there about 50-50 unless things change. If Mike Zunino really gets off to a slow start offensively and Francisco Mejia continues to do what he did tonight, rather, not a dud, but it was quite a nice performance. We know Mejia was a former top catching prospect, one of the top overall prospects in baseball a couple years ago with the Cleveland Indians. I believe this is his third or fourth organization he's been a member of. He's 25 years old now, so the clock kind of is ticking on that, but certainly you can see the potential that he has. I know he's kind of lauded for his strong arm. I don't think we saw him make a throw over there to second base tonight, but that is supposed to be his strong suit. But I thought he played pretty nice defensively over there, and on the base path also had some nice speed. You don't typically see that from the catcher position, so I think all around there's an interesting dynamic for sure over there with Francisco Mejia, and it was the starting pitcher Ryan Yarbrough batting ninth, and I guess he actually did get the chance to swing the bat and did foul off a couple of pitches off of Pablo Lopez, which was good to see. That's pretty much all you can ask for an American League pitcher batting in a game, is just, C5 pitches. That's typically the traditional kind of ask for a guy there in that spot. So going through everyone's performance there basically now at the plate, Yoshi Tsutsugo, let's give you the lineup also. I know I'm a little bit all over the place. Forgive me. This is only game 2 of the year. We're still getting it together. But leading off again for the second straight day, Yoshi Tsutsugo, then Meadows and Arozarena. Lau cleaned up, followed by Diaz and Wendell, and a bottom 3 of Margot, Mejia, and Ryan Yarbrough, at least to start the game. This was a pretty similar lineup compared to yesterday. 1 through 5 was all the same, and then basically some shifting around because of Wendell replacing Adames at shortstop for the day, Margot doing the same for Kiermaier in center field, and of course Mejia replacing Zunino. So as far as I know, the reasoning from Cash on that, and it makes sense, early in the season, just give the guys a day off, because with all the versatility that this Rays team does have, with that being said, you've only really got 2 guys that can start shortstop, and you've really only got 2 guys that can start in center field, basically meaning that your mainstays in Kiermaier and Adames, respectively, are going to play, unless injuries or anything else happens, 130, 140, maybe even more games that you're asking from those guys. So especially early in the season when you're trying to get these guys ready to go 9 innings, and I know spring training is some of that as well, but it's pretty commonplace to get those guys off days early, pretty early in the season. I would imagine both of those guys would be in the lineup tomorrow, but and then you get the off day on Sunday as well before heading into Boston. But either way, I thought all those guys did a fine job in basically where they were. Joey Wendell's always a guy I like to see at shortstop. Hits, I think, maybe even better than Adames at times, and is just as good, I would say, defensively. So now going one by one, Yoshi Tsutsugo, he was 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. Did have another couple of deep fly balls. So he was brought in to be a slugger to get hard hit balls in the air. And we do not have basically the success yet. He's not seeing, I guess, the fruit of his labors, but he's getting close, and I think that's a good sign. If he was striking out a bunch and not making contact, that would be one thing, but taking guys out to the warning track, I believe, multiple times is always a good sign. Seems like he's still struggling with the fastball, but I think that's something that we are expecting in 2021, at least during the early goings. He did have a strikeout looking where he looked a bit confused, but Pablo Lopez, the guy he was facing, certainly a tough guy to go against. None of his pitches came in straight. They all went, side-to-side movement, really hard to square up. So you add that to a guy in Tsutsugo that's already kind of trying to get his feet onto him, and that's where you get that. And then he did have a walk there in the 8th inning, and then, when they needed a run, and then, of course, Meadows with a double play to follow. But I like to see that as well. What are you doing in big spots? And Tsutsugo, those are his two strengths, really. I think hitting for power and the ability to get on base, the batting eye, all those things, and those things that you want to see in a leadoff hitter. So that was certainly good to see. And then speaking of leading off hitters, I like to kind of evaluate how they do in their first at-bat. He did see 5 pitches. They were all fastballs, for a matter of fact. Swung through 2 of them and then flew out on the 5th one, and that went out to the track. So all in all, I think a good at-bat. He took pitches outside the zone that were balls, and he swung at strikes, and to an extent, that's just about all you can do. So a decent performance for him there, and I think Cash will continue to give him opportunities. I'm not exactly sure he'll be there tomorrow, just because he's rather new to the position. I know he played first base in the Japan League, but I think it's been since about 2014 since he's done so. So you don't want to, I guess, test your luck. You don't want to push your limits there. You are already a bit thin at first base with the injury of Ji-Man Choi. So I would imagine we'll probably see Mike Brasso over at first base tomorrow, just with all those things being said. But hitting second after him was Austin Meadows. Meadows tonight, he goes 1 for 3 to score a run, knocks in a run. So that's what we call a solo home run, and that did come there in the 6th inning again, and he did work a walk there as well. So 2 games, 2 home runs. The talk going into the season, I think one of the X factors without a doubt for this Rays team was Austin Meadows, because you see how different this offense can be when he's at basically his best in 2019. He was basically making this offense go, mostly as a leadoff hitter, but a mainstay in the top of the order with those, 31, 33 home runs, somewhere between there, during his 2019 season, in which he garnered some top 10 MVP votes. The question was, after a rough 2020 where he dealt with COVID and injuries and all that, would he be the 2019 form, or would we continue to see him struggle? And with him dropping 20 pounds during the offseason, pitches that he had trouble getting to last year, so far he has been able to get to. And not only that, being able to take those baseballs and drive them out of the stadium, both home runs deposited into the right field seats in Lone Depot Park in Miami. So Meadows, you can't really ask for a better start for him. 2 games, 2 home runs. He's on pace to hit 162, so you love to see that. Also did work a walk in the 1st inning. I value that a ton as far as guys in the top of the order, how they take at bats in the 1st inning, because it can change the dynamic of the game if you can keep the starting pitcher from settling into a groove and getting his rhythm going. So credit to him for working a walk, and there were some easy pitches to take, but you still credit him for being patient there early in the game. Maybe the only knock on his game, and not really, was the double play that he grounded it into in the 8th inning. At least he put the ball into play, and it just happened to be where you didn't want it. Another dynamic that was interesting about Austin Meadows, we found out during the at-bat of his home run on opening day that he had considered laying down a bunt during that at-bat before hitting the homer. We saw that was something he tried to do in spring training, was unsuccessful, and I think either his 1 or 2 attempts. Brandon Lau was also another left-handed bat that did it twice, actually, with success, but Meadows, it looked like during that at-bat that he may be considered going for the bunt there again, and then yet again he also, ends up hitting a home run there at the end of that at-bat. So that's something interesting, and the reason I bring that up was because of the double play ball that he hit, basically grounding it into the shift. The purpose of when we see the Rays bunt this year, more so left-handed batters than right-handed bats, at least that's what Kevin Cash has been saying, is to basically just get base hits against the shift. It's not your traditional situational bunt where it's a sacrifice, you're trying to get a man over. No, not necessarily. It's just if a guy, a left-handed bat in Austin Meadows, and they're shifting you all the way to the right, they've only got basically one guy to the left of second base, lay a bunt down over there, because more times than not, if it's a decent bunt, you're able to get on, and that's certainly a valuable thing. So that'll be interesting to watch, basically to see how that continues to go. If he's hitting home runs, I guess he doesn't really need to lay down bunts, but the times that he has put the ball into the play that weren't out of the park, they tended to be into the shift and ground out. So we'll keep an eye on how that continues to go. Randy Arozarena batting third, hits a single in his first at bat again, so that's good to see. He's got a couple of hits already on the year, so 1 for 4 with a strikeout, which is certainly, you'll take that from your number 3 hitter night in and night out, and I think that may be more of what we see from Arozarena. Has hit a lot of balls on the ground here this far in the first 2 games. That's not necessarily a knock. I love to see him putting the baseball in play, but that people were expecting 50 or 60 home runs for him this season. I think, of course that's a little bit unreasonable, but he could certainly be a guy that hits 300, gets on base a ton, hits for extra bases, with some frequency as well. So has done a good job of putting the ball on the ground. A couple of hard grounders, just the one. The ground out in the 9th inning was kind of a check swing that he couldn't pull back in time, and he was actually the first out of that 9th inning where they ended up making the comeback. So they did have a strikeout there in the 3rd, but that's going to happen. Only 1 in the 4 at bats. Batting cleanup, it was Brandon Lau, 1 for 4. For him with a couple of strikeouts. He did hit a single there in the 9th inning. He was the first one to get on base there in that 9th to get it moving. He had an error in the bottom of the 8th, so the half inning before that basically allowed an additional run to score. The Marlins had, what was it, a 3-4 lead, and that made it 4-2, I believe. So it was... I always like to kind of see that, not that you want to see the error, but that he was able to come back up to bat the very next half inning to kind of redeem himself, and he did there, getting on base. Outside of that, the couple of strikeouts, and I think a fairly deep fly out to right in his other at bat as well. So Brandon Lau, a guy who yesterday had a walk and a double, so now he's got 2 hits and a walk, so he's been, I think, off to a good start in a Rays team that doesn't necessarily have a traditional cleanup hitter, besides maybe Brandon Lau, a guy who's great with the bat speed, great with the exit velocity. So if he can continue to perform at this level, I think he'll be the mainstay over there in the 4 hole, and at second base as well. He's pretty good defensively, although barring that error, which was just him, I think, trying to make a play when maybe he should have just eaten the baseball there. If you recall, in the 8th inning, it was a pitch hit by I don't know, someone. I am trying to look at the scorebook, but either way, he made a nice diving play with a runner at second base. If it had gotten through the hole, the runner would have scored. So just to get to the baseball, kept the runner to hold him basically there at third, I believe. But instead he tried to go to first for the out, and the throw was no good, and it allowed the runner basically at third to get home anyway. So it could have just been runners at the corners, but instead he tried to kind of go for the extra play. So that's a little bit different of an error than kind of messing up a routine play. But either way, a nice game for Brandon Lau, and certainly made that 9th inning comeback possible. Batting 5th, it was Yandy Diaz. Yandy goes 1 for 4 with a run scored. That came in the 9th inning as well, rounded the bases after that Joey Wendell home run. Outside of that, though, kind of a weak grounder to the pitcher in the 1st inning. Did have a pretty decent ride on a fly ball out to center in the 4th inning, so kind of like Yoshi Tsutsugo in that is getting close. I think something that we did not see in Yandy's game a season ago. Really struggled, I think, with his swing. It just seemed like he was off. The only thing that Yandy had going for him last year was his eye, and that he was walking a lot and was pretty much just a singles hitter, and that's certainly not what he was brought in to do. A guy that could basically tear the cover off of the walls hitting doubles is kind of his thing with the exit velocity, but more so kind of ground balls in that. So a fly ball there with some charge underneath it. That's certainly good to see. Had a ground out that was, I think, just kind of a routine grounder in the 7th, and then that single there in the 9th. So he did finally found the hole there, and I believe that was his first hit of the season. It was, yeah. He got on base yesterday via a hit by pitch. So Yandy Diaz there as well, and I think has looked okay over there defensively at third base. Certainly is not their best option. I think that would probably be Joey Wendell, or a guy that we've seen a little bit less, but is more mobile, and Mike Brasso. But especially in the National League Park without the DH, to get Yandy's bat in the lineup, you have to have him play somewhere in the field, and I think he's going to play more third than first this year. So all you need is for him to be fine over there, and he did have kind of a weird looking play that he did get the out on, where he was kind of falling all over himself. So he did kind of get beat up. I would imagine that they may give him the day off tomorrow, but who knows, because they get an off day on Sunday regardless. Next in the lineup, Joey Wendell, of course the hero, Joey Forearms. I say all the time, he's my favorite player watching this team since 2018, and he's been a mainstay for them. So versatile as far as a defensive piece that can basically play everything: second, third base, shortstop, left field, maybe even right field, who knows, but can play everywhere, and is a singles hitter more times than not. But during that at-bat in the 9th inning, it was kind of quite unique. He hit, I think, one or maybe even two foul balls with quite velocity, and so the thought was that he was probably seeing Marlins closer Anthony Bass pretty good out of the hand, and he was able to actually connect with one with multiple men on base, including one in scoring position when you're down a couple of runs. So would have been fine to see him hit a single or a double there, but you definitely don't complain with him taking it all the way out of a deep Marlins park that has held a lot of potential home runs inside the ballpark this series. For sure, has kind of changed the dynamic in that way. So Joey Wendell, the hero tonight. Great to see. He's a huge part of this team, and to see him perform offensively in that way, I think is always, it's good to see for him and all those things. And I guess, I doubt he actually said it. I think probably Cash putting some words in his mouth there, calling himself one of the Bash brothers with Austin Meadows. But wouldn't that be fun to see them both hit 30 homers, although Wendell probably won't hit more than 5 or 10, but either way there. Next in the lineup, it was Manuel Margot. I think he's had a pretty decent start to the season. Call it, a really good start to the season. Really hit a home run his first of the year, and also his first triple as well. And then yesterday, he had a couple of good at-bats as a pinch hitter, basically, and then coming into play left, a fly out to left where he almost took it out of the park there yesterday, and then did actually get one out there today, a home run in the 7th inning, and then a triple there in the 9th where he was able to come in to score on that Francisco Mejia sac fly. So Margot, a guy that had a rough start to the year last season with kind of some personal issues and certainly some things weighing on his mind. Of course, he lost his father early in the season last year, and you could see that was weighing on him. But then he really came into his own, not just as a really good hitter, but also outstanding defensively. I think that play in San Diego against the Astros where he was running over to his left and right field and then basically tumbled over the wall to make a catch there, that will kind of go down in Ray's infamy. So is a great defensive piece, can play all three of the outfield positions, as he will do frequently this year, especially without Brett Phillips being on the roster with him on the injured list. He's the only other guy besides Kiermaier that can play center field, but is also taken to the corners, I think, pretty well. And if he continues to hit like this, 2 extra base hits, Manny Margot is playing out of his mind as he did in the postseason as well. So a guy that I think, along with Wendell, with the versatility and with some offensive ability too, a really, really good thing to see Francisco Mejia, again, I talked about him a little bit earlier, so I won't spend too much time here, but a really good game in his Rays debut, a walk, a single, and a sac fly. So that's more offensive production than we typically see from the catcher position. I would prefer that, a walk, a single sac fly, than Mike Zunino, who maybe gives you a home run every 5 or 6 games. That's about, and I don't need to just come after him, but that's about all Mike Zunino is good for. He's not an average hitter. He's not going to hit a ton of singles, but he is kind of a power hitter. But that 20 home run a season guy that I think he was basically supposed to be, we have not really seen that from him in a Rays uniform. And a guy in the 7, 8, 9 spot in the order, I don't need a slugger. I need a guy that can get on base and move the baseball and those things, and Mejia is certainly able to do that. I think you look across the board, he runs certainly better than Zunino. It's too early to tell kind of defensively, but I know Mejia's main tool that had him as one of the highest regarded prospects in baseball was that great throwing arm that he has. And something I haven't mentioned yet, he's a switch hitter as well, which the Rays haven't had in quite some time, although I know they've got a ton in their minor league system, including Wander Franco. But I think that adds an extra kind of element to his game as well, that he can hit from both sides of the plate. So I think it'll be interesting to see, because I think certainly it's an open competition over there at the catcher spot right now. I think it'll still probably be 50-50. I think there's certain starting pitchers, Tyler Glasnow specifically, that may want Zunino catching on his day, and we'll see throughout the rotation how that continues to go. If maybe a veteran 41-year-old Rich Hill prefers a more veteran-type catcher in Zunino, Michael Wacha perhaps the same, so none of them have started a game yet in the regular season, so we'll keep an eye on that and see how that goes. But that may be the dynamic from there, because Mejia basically may be better in every other aspect. At this point, the only thing Zunino may be having going for him is that he's just more familiar with the pitching staff, which I have been continuing to say is valuable. But I watched what Mejia is doing at the plate. I like that. I almost might prefer to see more of that. So, and then from the 9 spot, just for kicks, Ryan Yarbrough, 0 for 2, did actually have a liner that he basically lined into a double play, which no fault of his own, but it's just kind of weird to see him. I wonder the last time that he's come to the plate. I think he must have done that a couple times with the Rays since 2018, but I can't remember for sure. And then Kevin Kiermaier getting a couple of at-bats as a pinch hitter, and to the surprise of probably no one, strikes out swinging both times. So a really rough start to the plate, although only 2 games. We have 160 left of these to go, but Kevin Kiermaier at this point, let's just take a quick peek because I know I can do the easy math. Now he is 0 for 6 with 4 strikeouts. He does have a single, but that was an infield hit that he was able to leg out. So basically, over half of his at-bats are strikeouts, which is never what you want to see. Is not looking disciplined at the plate, swinging wildly at everything. That's what we've seen from Kiermaier. As much as we hear probably every other offseason about how he's completely revolutionized his game, and then he comes into the regular season the exact same player as he was before. He just needs to play to his strengths. He's a great center fielder, perhaps still the best in baseball, or certainly up there among the best. And a guy that when he can get on the base path is probably one of the best base stealers that they have, and all those things, and a speedy running the bases. So if he could just get on first, he could be a weapon, but instead he wants to swing and hit the ball out of the park. So one of these days, maybe he'll change, but that day will not be today or probably tomorrow or the day after. But so there we go with the lineup, basically 1 through 9. I want to remind you one more time, if you're listening, if we've got anybody left, if I haven't run you off already and you want to call and talk about Joey Forearms or Ryan Yarbrough or Cash using the bullpen, this is your platform. The number to call, 877-566-1020, internationally toll-free. But now talking about the pitchers, it was Ryan Yarbrough getting the start, 5 2/3, almost got through his 6th inning, no runs on 4 hits, no walks. So that's outstanding to see that the first 2 starting pitchers did not walk a single batter. and 3 strikeouts as well. The strikeout's not really Yarbrough's game, and he's certainly played to his strengths tonight. Anytime you get through basically almost 6 innings and throwing only 65 pitches, averaging essentially 10 pitches an inning, I love to see that. Ryan Yarbrough is one of my favorite pitchers to watch, just because of, like I said, how he plays to his strength, does not have overpowering stuff, and he trusts his defense behind him. I think that's really the most crucial part of Ryan Yarbrough's success as a Tampa Bay Ray, is that they tend to play so good defense behind him, whether it's shagging fly balls in the outfield on the run, or making diving plays on the infield, things like that. Yarbrough oftentimes getting those weak ground balls, fly balls, anything in between. And he looked absolutely fantastic here tonight. A guy that Cash said going into the season could potentially be a workhorse alongside of Tyler Glasnow, and I think that could be the case. I think Yarbrough could have gone a little bit further in the game, but I'm not going to yell and scream about him being pulled out there in the 6th inning. He was facing, at that point, the lineup the 3rd time through. For the first couple batters, did get Rojas to pop out, but then did give up a double to Starling Marte, and then you had Jesus Aguilar and Cooper and Anderson and Duvall and some of those guys. So I understand that. That was the whole thing about the Snell move in Game 6 of the World Series, is about, the Rays are serious about this. This is not a gimmick. It's not a joke, that they really don't want to see their starting pitchers, save for maybe Glasnow, see an opposing team's order a 3rd time through, because the metrics will tell you that batters are much better when they can see a pitcher for a 3rd time in a game. So they're going to try and play to that strength, and which has tended to be their bullpen. It's been shaky a little bit the first couple of games. I think definitely more so tonight, when you had to go to maybe some of your B guys, and maybe Kittredge and Sheriff. I think Rowe is certainly now moved up among those A guys, maybe the 4 of them being, of course, Castillo, Fairbanks, Ryan Thompson, and Chaz Rowe. But back to Yarbrough. Was terrific. He's going to give up hits. That's just by the nature of balls put into play. They talk about all of the time in baseball, the more times you put the ball into play, the more hits you'll get. But that's just how he gets things done, and he tends to work around the hits that he does allow. He was facing the minimum through 3. Was thinking maybe no hitter watch. Is he going to do it? But then does give up. Basically, he could have made the play. The ball was hit right to him there in the 4th by Starling Marte, and just could not get the throw over to Yoshi at first base in time. And by the way, which I've forgotten to mention so far tonight, Yoshi Tsutsugo has looked pretty good over there at first base. Not G-Man Choi level. We haven't seen him do the full split yet, but has gone down to pick some balls out of the dirt. Has not really messed up any. The only throw that he was not able to get to was the throw offline by Brandon Lau that Yao Ming, being over 7 foot tall, couldn't have gotten to. So it wasn't that Yoshi couldn't get to it. It's just that the throw was offline. So has looked good over there, and it's going to be interesting to see how that continues to go. We had a caller last night talking about Tsutsugo and how the Rays may be better off having someone else hit leadoff. I agree with that. I certainly understand that point. But we know Cash is doing this for Yoshi to try and get him comfortable, and that's going to be a storyline to follow here over the next few weeks, maybe the first month. It looks like Choi may be ready to start playing games again by mid to late May. So over the course of that time period, if Yoshi continues basically kind of to struggle offensively, it's too early to tell, 2 games, but still no hits for him yet. Then you have to think about moving him out of that leadoff spot, because there's guys that are capable of putting production up, and if that's the case, then you certainly need to make the change, but definitely too early to do so. But again, just something to keep an eye on. But as long as he's playing good defensively, he's making his case to definitely stay in the lineup, and the only other options right now is Mike Brasso, which I think is probably just as equal as Yoshi, if not maybe even a little worse, but I think they're both just about the same. And Yandy Diaz, who you definitely don't want to see at first base too much unless you absolutely have to. So all of that being said, So that's about all I have to say about Yarbrough. 65 pitches, 41 strikes, so the balls to strikes ratio is good, and that's definitely Yarbrough's thing as well, throwing strikes. As much as his pitches move, they do tend to find the zone more times than not, but when they don't, it's certainly by design, and he had guys in a Miami Marlins uniform swinging at pitches that were well outside of the zone, so he was rolling, pretty much checked every box. He faced 20 batters, threw a first pitch strike to 8 of them. That's another metric I like to look at. But again, why knock him on that number? I mean, basically almost 6 innings scoreless. Yeah, he did great. And not necessarily that he has to get of hitters every time. I think because of the nature of he's not a strikeout pitcher. If you're a strikeout pitcher, yeah, you want to establish the first pitch strike because that's what you want to do. You don't want to walk guys. You want to get into 2 strike counts early. But for Ryan Yarbrough, getting outs early in counts, things like that, if you start him off 1-0, it doesn't really matter because he's probably going to have a weak ground out on that 1-0 pitch or the 2-1 pitch or whatever it is. It doesn't matter if he's behind the count. He can get you out at any count. So that may necessarily not matter as much. And then looking at the guy that came in after him with a man on second base, Peter Fairbanks, again, looked a little bit wonky. This is kind of what he's tended to be. It's never easy, but he does tend to kind of get out of it. He does, he can clean up his own mess, if you want to say that. He gave up a walk and a hit in an inning pitched last night, and here tonight with the man on second base, did walk Aguilar and then did get Garrett Cooper to fly out to right. So the move to the bullpen ultimately did end up panning out, but I understand that the lefty-righty matchup with Jesus Aguilar that you wanted to get righty-righty, and that's fine, but I don't know, Yarbrough probably could have gotten Aguilar out. I don't think it really mattered there too much, but which at that time was a 1-0 game, you go matchups. That's what you do. It's a close game. You got to lock it down, so they do that. Fairbanks fine, his second hold of the year. Then in the 7th inning, out comes Chaz Rowe to make his Rays debut. He gets a couple of outs there, 2 runs on a hit, 2 strikeouts and a walk, through a total of 23 pitches, only 13 for strikes. That was a problem with the 1 walk, but was not getting himself into favorable counts. Was 1 for 4 as far as the first pitch strikes, which I think for him that does matter, being a 2-pitch pitcher out of the bullpen. Obviously, he's got the fastball at low 90s with movement, and of course that frisbee-looking slider. I will say I'm not sure if all of his sliders were where he wanted them to be. It kind of was similar to Tyler Glasnow in that regard, but I think that's more of an early season thing, that he's going to take some time to kind of get some touch on that. I think there's certain things that you just can't figure out in spring training until you're in that real high-pressure game situation. That's when you have to have your feel for your pitches in that situation. So either way, not going to say it worked out great to give up a couple of runs. So how it went down, he struck out the first 2 batters he faced, Anderson and Duvall, and he made it look quite easy in the process. We thought it was going to be an easy, quick 1-2-3, 7th inning. He was facing the middle of the order, and that came in a 2-0 game, so not a super high-pressure situation for him, but then does give up a triple to Jazz Chisholm Jr., probably would have been a double to just about anyone else, but Chisholm, a youngster, is quite speedy. That's kind of his strength, so he's able to leg out a 3-bagger there to get the triple. So then all of a sudden, you go from 2 outs, bases empty, to a man on third there, and then an at-bat gets away for him. He walks the catcher Alfaro, so runners at the corners, then gives up a double to Will Brinson, who came in to pinch hit. So that did kind of suck to see there. I think it was down at probably the left field line, and those are always kind of hard to get to. So to give up a hit there, and then gave up another one. So back-to-back doubles, and you don't like to see that. Anytime a reliever in an outing, you give up 3 extra base hits, that means that your stuff was relatively easy to connect with. And that is kind of the case with Rowe, though, because of the pitches that he throws. Sometimes if they hang, they're really there for the taking. If they don't have that sharp break that they are intended to, that's where you can kind of get into some trouble. I'm not sure exactly if that was the root of all those, but I know that can kind of be his weakness in the past. But the slider was there. I think most of the outing, again, the first 2 strikeouts there, making it look easy. And then he did get the fly out to right there with a man on second base. So did give up 2 runs in that inning. It looks like, yeah, so not great, but we'll have plenty more chances to see him. Then to start the 8th inning, it was Ryan Sheriff to come on. And looking at what he was able to do, I'm trying to find where he started at. So, gave up a single to Jesus Aguilar. So his line, he gave up 1 run on 2 hits, no walks, 2 strikeouts. I was just a little bit discombobulated because I had something kind of messed up in my scorebook. So I'll go over to ESPN there. No, I've got it all mixed up. Sorry, Ryan Sheriff came in the 7th inning. Sorry, because Chaz Rowe did not get out of the inning. He only got the first 2 outs. So Sheriff had to come on. So the 2 doubles actually were to Sheriff. I apologize for that. I completely messed that up. So Chaz Rowe just gave up the triple and the walk. Then he came out with runners at the corners and 2 outs. So that was the situation for Rowe that Sheriff inherited. And then Sheriff gave up a double to the first man he faced in Brinson, and then another double. So back-to-back doubles for him. The second went to Miguel Rojas that drove in a couple of runs. So those 3 runs coming across to score on Sheriff's watch. Only one of them was charged to his name. The other 2, of course, to Chaz Rowe with the 2 men he put on base. And then it was Ryan Sheriff getting the fly out to right to Starling Marte. So, okay, we got through that 7th inning. So, Sheriff, a guy, again, who I mentioned, did not give up a run in just about 10 innings of work last season. First outing here of the year and does give up some runs. That's not great to see, but again, he'll get plenty more chances. I think he, alongside Cody Reed, which Reed being more so a multi-inning weapon, Sheriff basically is the number 1 left-handed specialist on this roster, unless maybe Jeffrey Springs overtakes him. But again, we haven't seen him pitch in a game yet, at least in the regular season. So I think Sheriff kind of holds that role, and that's the reason why we saw him come in that situation instead of Springs. And so that is the meaning behind that. I messed up. Instead of Brinson, he faced, it was the lefty Dickerson, because that was the tweet that I referenced earlier, that that was the situation for Sheriff, basically because he wanted that lefty-on-lefty matchup because Sheriff is so good lefty-on-lefty. He did get the ground ball as his specialty to the lefty, but it just happened to be hard hit and in the right spot, so that it was extra bases for Corey Dickerson. So then in the 8th inning, it was Andrew Kittredge. At that point, I believe, coming into that situation, it was a 3-2 Marlins lead. So you're asking Kittredge just to keep the game a 1-run contest and give your offense a chance down to their final 3 outs, basically in the top of the next frame. And he did give up a run on 2 hits, a walk, and a strikeout. So 3 base runners total in the inning. I thought his stuff looked fine coming back off of injury. Was surprised to see his fastball all the way up to 96. I don't even remember him throwing that hard prior to the injury, so I don't know if maybe he's come back a little bit stronger. I know he's up there in age at this point. It's got to be early 20s or late 30s. Let's actually take a look on that. And Kittredge, by the way, did earn the win. He's 31 years old this year, just recently turned 31 a couple of weeks ago. So he's up there in age, but still throwing 96. Was working the changeup, did have the slider going. I guess sinker and slider for him there. Kind of, at least that's what ESPN says. It's basically up to, I guess, your interpretation to decide what the pitches are, because I don't think ESPN has it right all the time. But he's basically got a fastball and an off speed, and everything pretty much moves pretty well. And I think that was the highlight from his outing, was that the pitches did have that movement to it. Did give up a leadoff single to Jesus Aguilar, then got a strikeout of Cooper, gave up another single there to Brian Anderson, then got a ground ball out, then walked a man, and then got the fly out to end the inning. And the second single was the play that was an error for Brandon Lau, where he basically threw the ball away, and the runner that would have been held at third base was able to scamper home. So that was where the one run came from. It was still charged earned to him, but because he put the two men on base. But I thought it was a fine inning for him. That's the situation, I think, more times than not, that we'll see Kittredge in. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's like a setup man when you have the lead, but I think he's your top candidate if you're down a run late in the game and you want to keep it close, but you don't necessarily want to burn a Fairbanks or a Castillo in that situation, because you really shouldn't be doing that if you're down. Kittredge is your guy. He's, I guess, the top of the list of high leverage spots in a low leverage situation, if that makes sense. Because that is, if you're losing, that is low leverage in that regard, but it is still an important situation because you are only down one run. So if that makes any sense, it may make no sense to you. So if that's the case, I apologize. But that's the spot that we'll see Kittredge in. And then it was Diego Castillo spinning his magic there in the ninth in another save situation. Was a bit surprised to see them go with Castillo on back-to-back nights to open the season, because he probably is their best bullpen arm at this point with the loss of Nick Anderson. So you want to be careful with him. This is only April. We've got a long way to go, but I think Kevin Cash recognized the importance of the situation and was high leverage. You're facing the 9-hole hitter, which is a pinch hitter of your choice at that point, and they go with John Birdie, which is he is a righty bat, so they didn't get righty-lefty in that advantage, but they, I guess, technically could have. And then he faced the 1-2-3 hitters and Rojas, Starling Marte, and then at that point a substitution in Sierra. So was a high-leverage situation, and he passed the test once again. He is 2 for 2. Obviously no runs allowed, did strike out a man and allowed one hit. That's the base runner, and that was to Starling Marte, who had a 3-hit night. He's obviously one of the Marlins' better players, and he'll come through in big spots, but that he was able to work around it, and it was with 2 outs. He was able to get Magnierto Sierra to end the game, so that was good to see. It was a weak ground ball right to Yoshi at first base, and he was able to go and get the force to make it a ball game. So that's about it as far as the box score and, going player by player. We may change some things as far as how we do these post-game shows. Sometimes we'll have callers, sometimes we won't. So when we don't, I just tend to go through that way. Sometimes if there's kind of crazy situations, we'll go inning by inning, using kind of the ESPN stuff that they have, but I thought we pretty much covered most of the big situations. And then I guess at this point, because I think I would like to keep these within an hour, what we'll do now is talk about basically tomorrow's game. So tomorrow is going to be at 6:10 tomorrow night, Rich Hill against Elijah Hernandez. Rich Hill on the season in 2020 with the Minnesota Twins, he was 2-2 with a 3.03 ERA. Did not obviously face the Marlins last season because it was only the East played the East, the Central played the Central, and so on. So, and then by the way, we got anyone left? You want to call in? Last call, 877-566-1020. Just one last time before we call it a night. So Rich Hill will be on the mound tomorrow. It looks like he's going to pitch about 3 innings. I think that would be the expectation. I think he would have a pretty strict pitch limit, whether it's 75 or so. That's what I would guess. And then it was announced a while ago, dating back to spring training, that Chris Archer is going to pitch basically in a tandem start. So I would imagine that he would be pitching another 3 innings, because if you go tandem, that's typically what that would be. Dating back to spring training, we saw them for a while there. They would both pitch on the same day, Rich Hill in a game, Chris Archer in a backfield game, or vice versa, and it was, why are you doing that? Aren't these guys basically, spots 3 and 4 or 3, in the rotation, whatever. And it looks like for now they are going to pitch together. I think the expectation is that Archer will start one of the games in Tropicana Field against the Yankees coming up here next weekend. So I think this is, because he did not pitch all of last season with a thoracic outlet surgery, did not pitch since basically the middle of 2019, I believe. So it's been a while for him. So maybe to alleviate some pressure for him, and he's Archer, I'm talking about, and he's only going to pitch, I would say, at least 3 innings. I know he's got a pretty strict 75 pitches probably at most, and you would think if you're only going 3 innings, you wouldn't need that much. Like, we're talking maybe 40 or 50 pitches that we'll see Chris Archer throw. But I think that'll be an interesting dynamic. You've got the 41-year-old left-hander in Hill that's a fastball curveball type, and then you're going to the righty in Chris Archer that's a fastball slider but has now implemented a changeup. So different styles, different sides of the plate, different kind of arm angles, all that stuff. So if you're going to go with the tandem start, that's as good of a situation probably as you could look for. And if we're lucky enough to have both of these players healthy come playoff time, I think that's certainly something the Rays would experiment with. Not that that's the best time to try something new, but like I said with the tandem start, that's about as good a pairing as you could find as far as contrasting styles and putting not a lot of pressure on either of them, having them say, maybe get 2 innings each, 3 innings each, and that helps out your bullpen a ton, and you're not asking a full start out of either of them. So I think that this will be kind of a nice little test run for them. Usually what we'll do is we'll tell you kind of the last time that each pitcher faced the team. We've been able to do that with Glasnow and Yarbrough, as they both faced the Marlins last year, and both the Marlins starters faced the Rays last year, but neither of the starters tomorrow had faced the opposing team. I went back all the way to 2016 or 17 with the Dodgers. Rich Hill did not face the Marlins, so the last time he faced him, it could have been 2010, and that wouldn't be relevant. And for Elijah Hernandez, he did not face the Rays last year, and he did not face them in 2019 either. He actually did face them in 2019, so we'll take a peek who's in that lineup, because I just found this out. So he did only pitch 3 innings. He did allow 5 runs, so a drastic different lineup. The only guys who are on the Rays now would be Meadows, Kiermaier, and Adames. So let's not take anything from that. So let's stick to the script. So Elijah Hernandez last year only started, it looks like, 6 games. He was 1-0 with a 3.16 ERA. He's a 25-year-old right-hander, so he's one of their young arms prospects that they're highly touting as kind of the future of their team. It certainly is going to be the rotation that's going to headline basically this rebuild. So went about 4 or 5 innings to start last year. Nothing too crazy. The 3.16 ERA is good, but that's a really small sample size. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from there, and the Rays will get a chance to see him tomorrow. As far as the lineup that they would put out against him, the predictions that I have, it's really hard to tell because Cash has been a little bit unpredictable here the first couple days, saying that he wants to get guys days off and all those things, and that Wendell was going to probably play a lot of games in this stretch, and that's why he didn't play an opening day. And I did not expect Adames to get a day off this early. That threw me off, especially with the team having Sunday off. So I took that into account as far as my predictions, and what I came out with was this. Austin Meadows leading off in left, Arozarena batting second and right, Brasso making his season debut batting third at first base, Brandon Lau cleaning up at second, Joey Wendell batting fifth at third base, Willie Adames batting sixth at shortstop, batting seventh Kiermaier in center, Mike Zunino catching and batting eighth, and of course it will be Rich Hill to start the game batting ninth. And pitching, he may get one at bat, who knows. That'll be kind of fun to watch a 41-year-old take at bats against a 25-year-old Hernandez. That is kind of an interesting thing to watch. So I think they may want to take Brandon Lau out to give him the day off, but it would be hard to do that because I think they'd probably rather get Yandy Diaz the day off because he played the field the first 2 games of the season, and that's not typically something he does. So I made that the priority, and there's only so many infielders to go around right now, so Wendell and Brasso playing the corners basically because that's about all you can do. And I also wanted to, in this scenario, give Yoshi the day off because he played first base, obviously, the first 2 games. So want to be careful. Don't need to have guys playing 3 straight days to start the season. But Austin Meadows, another guy I think they'd like to give a day off, but might not be able to because they only have 4 outfielders on the 26th man right now. So keep in mind that one of these guys is going to get a day off. I'm not going to get this exactly right, but that's how I'd imagine it going. And you got a pretty decent balance of lefty-righty in there as well. So we'll see how that plays out. And then the pitching, as far as I can estimate, Rich Hill going 3, Archer probably 3 as well. They're a little bit limited right now as far as coming out of the bullpen with guys that would be fresh. Obviously, you don't want to tax these guys too early. It's a really long season, and you're going to need all these arms. So it's pretty safe to rule out Diego Castillo pitching off. Basically, he would be pitching off a back-to-back, which is a no-no this early. Pete Fairbanks would be pitching off a back-to-back, which is obviously a no-no. So guys that you could have, if you want to have Kittredge go again on a back-to-back, he certainly could. If Hill and Archer both get you 6, that's only 3 innings that you have to cover. So Jeffrey Springs, I think a guy that will see his season debut tomorrow, get him into the fold. Ryan Thompson, a guy that's pitching on 1 day's rest. He could maybe take the 8th or the 9th. So let's say Springs, Thompson, and then maybe Cody Reed, who's fresh as well, to make his season debut. If you want to have a guy go 2 innings, Colin McHugh or Cody Reed could both do that. I think Cody Reed would be the guy that they would rather have go 2, as McHugh is more of like a 3 or 4 inning guy, I think, and they may prefer to have him available and ready to go against Boston Monday through Wednesday. So Cody Reed could potentially go for 2. I could see him go for 1 in his season debut. So let's say they do that. So Hill for 3, Archer for 3. You get Springs maybe to take the 7th. Ryan Thompson to take the 8th, and then maybe Cody Reed, who they like a lot, to pitch in some big moments, maybe to pitch the 9th. So that's how I see all that going. So with that being said, as we just cross over recently to the 1 hour mark, thanks everyone who tuned in. I hope it was a good show. You can tell I'm still kind of getting in the groove of things after that off season. So we're on post game just about after every game. So we look forward to hopefully maybe having some callers call in during the first couple weeks of the season and get that going. But yeah, thanks everyone definitely for tuning in. It is Rich Hill and Eliza Hernandez going tomorrow at 6:10 p.m. from Lone Depot Park in Miami. It'll be a good one. We will be on the air after the game. Hopefully they'll win, be 3-0 maybe. We'll see you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC